Okay. Hello, my wild darlings. Good to see you. I'm Tad. I will be here for about the next hour, approximentemundo, and I am glad to see you, or will be glad to see you when you watch this, if that makes sense. Anyway, a pleasure as always. It is Sunday at 7 p.m. here in California, and upstairs. Usually the riot action is downstairs with the cats here. But tonight, if you hear occasional thumps and bumps and sounds, it is the party upstairs, which I have left just to come and read and hang out with all of you guys. But we are having a joint birthday party for two of our kids. I told you this was the time of the year where all the birthdays happen. So we are having a birthday party for two of our January birthday young people. And they are all still up there. I don't know how long they're going to go because some of them have been here since 2 o'clock this afternoon. But I have deserted the party to come and hang out with you. So that is what I am going to do. I will be reading more from Sleeping Late on Judgment Day, which, I don't know. It's hard to say. People often say, what's your favorite book of your books? And it's very, very hard to say that for a number of reasons, mostly because books are written at different times in a person's life. Books have different significance in the sense of what one was trying to do to begin with and one's own personal judgment of how well you achieved that and various things. And as a result, my answers sometimes change when people say, what's your favorite of your books or whatever. I very seldom mention Sleeping Late on Judgment Day, but I'm actually very fond of it. Is it my favorite Bobby Dollar book? Maybe. Is it one of my favorite books in general? Probably. Although obviously people who know me know it's not one of my longer books, but obviously that is not my requirement for favorite books. I won't talk too much about why it's a favorite, except that just I like a lot of the ideas that came up as I was working on it. And I liked some of the expansion. I didn't get to do as much expansion of San Judas in the second volume because most of it took place in hell, and most of the world building was how does hell work, or at least how does hell work in the Bobby Dollar universe. Whereas like the first book, the third book takes place mostly, not entirely, in San Judas. And so I was able to add some more things and some other details. But most importantly of all, of course, is I finally got to resolve, solve, elucidate, any number of words that might fit here, a lot of the mysteries and things that had been set up in the first couple of books. And that is always hugely satisfying. I don't know, I just always really liked this book. And so that's part of the reason that I decided that would be the next thing I would read. Also the fact that other books are so far from when we read the previous volume, the first volume, that if I go ahead and read, the Second Otherland, Stone of Farewell, Empire of Grass, or something like that. Shadow Play, I think, is the second one. Anyway, if I decide to do those, I will have to it will require a great deal more synopsizing. I will have to, bring people back up to date, which means I will have to bring myself back up to date. Because believe it or not, I don't sit around reading my own books all day. So anyway, that is the general thing. But, I did want to read it, and so I'm doing it. And I hope you will enjoy it. Let me check in and see who has showed up so far with this for this Sunday evening thing. Joanna McCollum. Hello, Joanna. Lovely to have you. Jim Laubacker, same thing. Pleasure to have you too. Becky, that's Becky Willems. Hello, hello, hello. Good to see you. And who else has showed up? Susan Shamblin and Kristen Rule. Hello, Kristen. And Barb Ann is here. Mr. Mark Craigbaum is here. And as always, a great pleasure to see him. Claudia War, good to see you. Isaac, Tim, as always, a great pleasure to have you. Kelly Kenrick, Mark Marino, Penny Davies, Christy Sanders are all the people who have made comments or signed in some shape or form so far. So good to see you all, and pleasure to have you with me. Most of whatever new information there was, I handed out last night, and but to summarize, not a huge amount. Just been working, obviously, working on the Splintered Sun, which I am editing before it goes to copy editing, and doing all the maps and things, which has taken some work too, because it's not only doing the maps to prepare them for Isaac Stewart, who will do the final maps as he did for the Witchwood Crown, etc., that whole group of books, but because I have to finalize a lot of the geography in a way that I don't usually bother to do during the first draft. So I kind of estimate where people would be, how long it would take them, but also I'm changing things around as I'm writing the first draft, and I'm going back and moving that later in time or something further in, earlier in time or whatever, and then you have to go back and make sure that the geographical mentions, how far they've come that day or how far it is to such and such a place or where exactly they are, all has to be matched up too. So I've been working on those two things and preparing for the endless, or not preparing for the endless, I mean, it's been going on for like a month and a half, 2 months, but dealing with the endless succession of social events and occurrences that happen this time of the year, of which today was only the latest. I shouldn't say was in the past tense. It's still going on upstairs, as I mentioned. My family, my beloved family, are all still up there drinking things, many of them non-alcoholic, I must say, to be fair, and eating food and enjoying desserts and handing out presents and all that kind of stuff. So it is still going on. But anyway, so that's mostly what I've been doing lately. Deb is doing all her normal stuff. She's working on her fabric art. And the dogs, as I have mentioned last night, dogs actually in good shape. Johnny is developing a bit of the air of a slightly irritated older brother, which is fine. We have a lot of experience with that in this household because our son was the elder, our biological son was the elder, and our biological daughter was the younger, and she was brutal to him when she was little. She was a real firecracker, and whenever she'd get angry with him, she'd just slug him. And despite the fact that he was like a foot taller than her and 20, 30, 40 pounds heavier, depending on when it happened in their childhood, he never hit her back. He was such a good big brother. He was always really patient. He not happy. Obviously, nobody wants to get slugged even by a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. But he was just very patient with her. And I think part of that is because he had really been excited and looking forward to the idea of being a big brother. And he embraced it and did brilliantly. And in fact, even saved her once. When we were in our old house, and our daughter, who was maybe 2 or 3 at the time, somehow got out the front door and out the gate. I don't know how that managed, and ran down the driveway. And our house there was right on the edge of a very busy, pretty busy street, and also busy street with a lot of curves in it. So people were not always going to see who was running out into the street, especially from where our house was. And our son shouted and screamed for us, and meanwhile ran after her, and we came running out at the clear sound of panic in his voice, and we managed to all catch up to her at the bottom of the driveway just before she would have run out into the street, and brought her back. So he was an excellent big brother, and to her credit, she has since apologized for what a little pillock she was when she was younger, and was always whacking him and yelling at him and upset with him about various things. Anyway, so those are among the many upstairs at the moment, our dear ones, all of them, all beloved friends and family. So, anything else that I need to bring you up to date on? Not really. No, I'm just in, January, the holidays starting to calm down, working mode. And I like being in that mode, and I really want to go ahead and just now have a straight run for the next few weeks to finish up Splintered Sun by the end of January, which is when I've promised it to my publishers. And then I can decide what exactly I'm doing next. Although it's beginning to look more and more like I will be doing at least another follow-up to the Splintered Sun, because my publishers really like it. But I have some other things I'd like to write as well. So we shall see what we shall see. But anyway, so that's the general flavor of the month around here. Let me, at this point, check in on the book. Yeah, I've got that all set up. So I'm going to just go ahead and start reading, even though I haven't babbled quite as much as usual. I'm sure that that won't upset anybody too much. If I had anything worthwhile to tell, I would tell. But things are happily boring at the moment. And believe me, there is nobody who likes boring better than I do, because boring means I get to decide how I'm going to use my time instead of being everybody's last resort for, the computer doesn't work, the dishwasher isn't working right, where's the such and such, I can't get the top off of this, all that kind of stuff, where I have to shoulder the dad role or the husband role. So I am pleased that things are boring, and I hope they continue boring, at least until I get the book finished or redrafted. Anyway, so we continue with Sleeping Late on Judgment Day. We are now about to start Chapter 4, which is titled Too Hot. I woke up twice in the night. The first time because I thought I heard something tapping at my window. I took a flashlight and my gun just to be prepared, but could find nothing. The second jolt into wakefulness a few hours later was for no reason I could put my finger on. Still, as I lay there listening to the silent darkness, I couldn't help noticing a very bad smell, as if a large rat had gotten into the apartment heating ducts and died. Wouldn't that be just my luck? I woke for the third time about 5 minutes before the alarm went off and lay there thinking about some of the bad decisions I had made in the last year. Then my phone rang. It was Alice, of course, with her usual impeccable timing. She had work for me, an 88-year-old lady who had just died in the Orchard District, west of Spanish Town. I had time only to chug a cup of reheated coffee before going out, and my head felt like it was full of wet grit. Could have been worse, I guess. The job itself wasn't too bad. Everything about the deceased's life proved to be ordinary and even praiseworthy, and I saw her soul off to heaven about 11 o'clock, or at least that's what it was when I returned to Earth time. Since I had nothing I immediately needed to do, I parked at the San Judas Amtrak station, what some old-timers in Jude still referred to as the depot, then walked through the station arcade, first built at the beginning of the 20th century, when the railroad station was the heart of the city. I badly needed some stimulants. There's a coffee place there I like, not because they serve anything other than the high-priced stuff you can get everywhere else these days, but because the manager or somebody likes jazz, and it's usually playing on the sound system. In fact, I have a soft spot for the arcade in general, and not just because of the coffee joint or the spectacular glass and iron fretwork roof that runs from the station all the way to Broadway. Walking along one of the upper levels beneath the high atrium ceiling, looking down on all the busy shoppers reminds me in a weird way of heaven. Of course, unlike the happy place, retailers at the station arcade have splashed corporate logos on everything, undercutting the Edward grace of the buildings just a teensy bit. But I still enjoyed it. I like people, see? I really do. I just don't like them much close up. The coffee shop is called Java Programmers, which I assume is a tech joke of some sort, but I forgive them because of the background music. I ordered regular coffee, a chicken salad sandwich, and some kind of non-potato potato chips. A mistake I will not make again because they tasted like baked sawdust. The sound system was playing something modern, a saxophone duet. As I chewed and sipped and listened, I tried to get my head around what I was going to do next. Don't get me wrong, it was nice to be back to work and living the old familiar angelic life, something I doubted I'd ever see again when I was slogging through hell. On the other hand, I was only having this brief vacation in normality because I'd managed to avoid being ripped to bits, shot, or stabbed several dozen times by folks who, as far as I knew, still wanted to do all those things to me. Several loose ends from that hell trip were still dangling, the two most important being Kaz, the woman I loved, who remained a prisoner in hell, and Anaita, the powerful angel who kept trying to off me, for no reason I could discover or even guess. You'd have thought I'd stolen her designated space in the Heaven's executive parking lot. The whole mess seemed to revolve around a bargain that important angel, Anaita, masquerading as Angel Kephas, had made with Grand Duke Eligor, the big-name demon who was holding Kaz prisoner. Eligor had received an angel feather from Anaita as a symbol of their bargain. Actually, the feather was meant as blackmail fodder to keep her quiet if their deal to create a home for the Third Way experiment fell apart. The feather had eventually come into my possession. Don't ask unless you've got a free week or so. And after I got back from hell, I'd tried to trade it for Kaz's freedom. Eligor tricked me. He got the feather, but he also hung on to Kaz. But just when I had begun seriously wondering whether angels could commit suicide, my junior angel friend Clarence had asked me what Eligor contributed to the deal as his marker. In other words, what had the demon swapped for the feather? This had never occurred to me, and with this realization, I found a reason to go on. See, if I could get my hands on Eligor's marker, which I was pretty certain had to be one of his horns, since I'd seen that he was growing one back when Eligor accidentally showed me his real and really scary face, it would be worth just as much to him as the feather, and I could trade it for Kaz and get the swap right this time. But here was the problem. I didn't have Eligor's horn, and I didn't have the slightest idea where it might be. I was going to have to figure out where Anaita had stashed it, then steal it from her. Oh, and get away with it without either Anaita or any of my other bosses finding out, or, in fact, learning any of the stuff I'd been up to lately. Easy, right? As I finished my sandwich and sawdust chips, I watched a bunch of teenagers dicking around in front of a video game shop across the way. Something about the way one of them was spinning around, smacking his friend with a wool scarf, reminded me of Mr. Fox, the dancing maniac I'd met near the beginning of the whole wretched Third Way mess. Foxy had helped me by setting up an auction to sell the feather. I never intended to sell it. At that time, I didn't know I actually had it, but I wanted to find out what it was that everyone thought I had, so I decided to get a bunch of crazy people in to bid on it. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. As with so many of your heroes' thrilling adventures, the auction ended with a bunch of nasty folks trying to blow me to pieces with dangerous weapons, and then a giant Babylonian demon whatsit, a Galu, shredding my car into metal scrap with me and Sam inside it. But thinking of Mr. Foxy reminded me that he knew the kind of people who were interested in things like a genuine angel's feather, which made him a logical candidate to know things about a Grand Duke of Hell's horn, too. It wasn't a perfect fit. Fox had only known about the feather because word leaked out that it had been stolen from Eligor. But he might be able to point me to someone who could give me a few leads. I certainly needed somebody's help, because right now I was as empty as the giant cardboard bucket whose contents I'd just downed what passed for a coffee cup these days. So, not a plan, maybe, but at least I had a caffeine buzz going now, and a next step. Ask Foxy. I was so close to downtown, I decided to leave my car in the station lot and just walk. The weather was pretty nice. November in Northern California is like September most other places, and I didn't mind stretching my legs. I passed several of the city's cherry picker trucks. The public Christmas decorations go up in June right after Thanksgiving. You know, in case someone didn't know it was the holiday shopping season, despite every store in the city draping itself in tinsel and pumping in canned versions of The Little Drummer Boy and God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. Downtown Jude has really grown a lot in the last 10 years. I admit to being just enough of an old-timer now to find some of it a bit irritating. They were pretty careful not to muck up the historical buildings at the heart of things, but everything else seemed to be painted these Toy Town colors that really didn't work for me. Big swathes of yellow and purple and blue, bright colored awnings, lime green lamp posts. Sometimes it looks like the whole downtown has been turned into a daycare center for overgrown children. I guess that's progress of a sort. I'm told that in the 70s and 80s it got pretty grim in the old part of town. Nothing but bums and liquor stores and strip joints, but I've lived downtown since I got out of the Harps, and I'm enough of a romantic to say I might have preferred the old version to living on Sesame Street. And now, I hear Jude's Chamber of Commerce wants to rename the old part of downtown the Pioneer District. Shudder. As I slowed down near the entrance to Beager Square to let a large family cross the intersection in front of me, I noticed that a couple of guys I'd seen earlier were still walking behind me, and that they'd stopped too. They were now having a discussion in front of the showroom window of a baby needs store called Small Wonders, pointing at things and animatedly discussing them. The pair looked a bit like Mormon missionaries, young, clean-cut white guys wearing boring suits. I suppose they could have been a couple of young fathers-to-be, but the act seemed a little forced, and something about their suits and black shoes didn't look quite right. Cops? The Popo did seem younger every year, at least to me. Or were these guys something more sinister? I was tempted to lure them into an alley and scare the shit out of them, but for all I knew, they really were just a couple of kids looking for people who needed the word of Jesus. It would have been bad enough terrorizing innocent Mormons, but if they were undercover cops, things could get complicated. Besides, I had something to do and didn't want to be observed, so I strolled into Beager Square, doubled back behind one of the food trucks that swarmed to the square at lunch and dinner times, then slipped into one of the public restroom kiosks. I stayed there, savoring the smells of human failure for several charming minutes, then stepped back outside. No sign of the missionaries, so I headed out to the street corner, where I had first successfully summoned Foxy, everybody's favorite dancing dealer in stolen supernatural goods. When I reached the intersection of Marshall and Main, I climbed onto the nearest pedestrian island, pushed the walk button, then pretended to wait for the light. Nobody seemed to be looking, so I drew a line down the air, and one of heaven's patented zippers sprang into being. As the first group of pedestrians gathered around me, I waited. Then, as soon as the light changed and they stepped off, I leaned in and softly called Fox's name into the glowing crease that only angels and a few other select folk could see. He had appeared almost instantly the first time, so I looked around. The usual river of cars was inching past, but there was no sign of Mr. Fox, and believe me, he's a hard guy to miss. I waited a minute or so, then was just about to try it again when I noticed something flitting at the edge of my peripheral vision on the far side of Marshall Avenue. A white shape, like a very tiny, very agitated ghost. When I focused on it properly, I saw it was a handkerchief being waggled up and down from behind a wooden hoarding where construction work was going on. I waited for the light to change because even an angel doesn't want to get his earthly body ground to hamburger in the middle of a busy street. Then I wandered over. As I reached the plywood hoarding, defaced with an entire catalog of graffiti, I saw the hand emerge again, Saul's handkerchief, and beckon me toward the shadows at the edge of the building area. As I got closer, I could make out a familiar silhouette. Mr. Fox, or Foxy, or whatever his name really is, looks like a cross between Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins and the host of a really weird Japanese game show. He wears baggy suits and floppy scarves, and he also happens to be an albino, I think. I say I think only because he might be something that just looks like an albino human. If you want to get past making snap judgments, hang around with Bobby D for a while. Meet some of the people I know. Seriously, it'll cure you of the tendency very quickly. One of the nicest people I'd met in the last few years was about 10 feet tall, with a giant axe wound right in the middle of his skull. He looks like he should be making sandwiches out of kindergarten students, but he's actually a sweetheart. Too bad for him, he lives in hell. Anyway, back to Foxy. I could tell immediately that something wasn't quite right, because even though it definitely was him, same corpse white skin, same cat yellow eyes, he wasn't dancing. At least not the way he usually did. Constant swirl of motion, bending, spinning, a bit of soft shoe, jazz hands, and a big finish. That kind of thing. Instead, he was staying in one place, and the only consistent movement was a nervous shuffling of his feet. "Mr. Bob!" He smiled, but it wasn't the most convincing thing I've ever seen. "So nice to see you. Too bad, can't talk now." What do you mean?" I looked back in case he'd seen something I hadn't, but we were well out of the flow of foot traffic, mostly hidden by the construction scaffolds and the plywood wall. "Oh, you know, Dollar Man. Lots of work. Foxy, always on call. But I see you real soon." He was already backing deeper into the shadows. "Hold on. I need to ask you a question. About the auction at Islanders Hall. You remember that, right?" He laughed. A trifle bitterly, I thought. "Oh, yes. Very exciting. Many shootings. Completely not bad for business, Mr. Bobby. Look, I'm as sorry about that as you are. You should have seen how I spent the rest of that evening." That had been the Babylonian demon Whatsit I referred to earlier, which had not only killed my car, but had destroyed half the compasses when it followed me and Sam there. "But I need to know who was at the auction. More specifically, I need to know who might be interested in certain kinds of articles. Not the one I was selling that night, but something similar." Now the fidgeting became a full-force tap dance of agitation. "So, sorry, Mr. Dollar Bob. Don't remember any of it. Don't remember anyone there. Don't even remember what you're talking about. Suddenly it is all, so distant." Now he really did back away, still jiggling like a man who badly needs to urinate. "What is this bullshit, Fox? You're the one who came to me in the first place, remember? You're the one who said you'd be happy to work with me any time." "Oh, and I would, I tell you true. But right now, no. Simply too hot. Too much bad stuff. Sorry." "What do you mean, too hot? What's too hot?" "You are. Whole thing. Mr. Foxy can't get involved. Way too big for poor little Foxman." I didn't like the sound of that at all. "Just tell me what you know." "Can't. Talk to you soon, Mr. Dollar Bobby. I'm sure everything will go super swimmy great for you. No problem. Just... While I waited for him to finish that sentence, a car horn blared a short distance away. I jumped, but it was only a cab driver honking at an adventurous pedestrian who had decided to explore the zone outside the crosswalk. When I looked back, Foxy had vanished like a New Year's resolution in February. Did I like this idea of myself as a doomed target that even crazy semi-people would avoid? I did not. Fact is, if I hadn't been all the way across downtown from my car, I would have sloped right back to the compasses and had myself a shot or two of tell reality to shut up. But I didn't want to get a work call while I was still a sober 15-minute walk away from my car, let alone a more lubricated 25-minute stumble. So I turned my back on the big bayfront skyscrapers and started back toward the railroad station. I kept an eye open, but this time I didn't see my friends in the missionary suits or, and I was even more grateful for this, any giant might-be spiders lounging under parked cars. We should always be thankful for the small, good things. Back home to my only slightly squalid Tierra Green apartment. Just as I got through the door and reached for the lights, something furry ran across my feet. I admit that in the mood I was in, I might have been a little wound up, which probably explains the fact that I jumped and bellowed in surprise so loudly that the upstairs neighbor started pounding on his floor. It also explains why I didn't see more than the last little bit of whatever it was that scuttled out the open window of my second-floor walk-up. What it doesn't explain, though, is why the thing on the windowsill appeared to be a hairy, skinny, gray and black arm with a shriveled little bruise-colored hand at the end of it, like an unmummified version of the monkey's paw. But before I had a chance to make a foolish wish or even to start shouting again, the clutching fingers let go and it dropped out of sight. I rushed to the window, of course, but saw nothing in the alleyway below but a couple of recycling bins too small to hide even the most modestly sized ape. Maybe I was catching all the crazy floating around. Maybe it was just post-traumatic shock. I still slept with my gun underneath my pillow that night. Chapter 5, Haunted. Seriously, I told Clarence, the junior angel, as we waited to order. It's starting to freak me out a little. It's been going on for days. First, there's something scratching in the walls. Oh, and an intermittent smell of rotting meat. Love that. Then there's the monkey's paw, or whatever that was. Monkey's paw? Clarence brushed some lint off his sweater as I explained about the little gray hand on the windowsill. The kid had upped his game a bit lately, clothes-wise, more GQ preppy, less dad on his high school debate team. He was even rocking some cool wire-rimmed glasses. Plus, he had let his hair grow out a bit and had the floppy, just-got-off-my-sailboat look going on. He was also, at least at that moment, wearing the facial expression of an astrophysicist who is listening to an anal probe hysteric explain why aliens are real. This pissed me off a bit because pretty much all the stuff I've told him has turned out to be true. Yes, it was a hand, damn it, I said. Don't look at me like that, with little fingers and a little tiny thumb. Maybe it was a raccoon. Fuck your raccoon. Besides, there's more. Last night, I start hearing something bump against my window while I'm lying in bed. Like a really big fly, you know how they do, but this sounded huge. I kept trying to catch it, but every time I get up, I find nothing. Then, when I checked in the morning, I saw a kind of slimy smear on the outside, like something really disgusting had been pressing its nose against it. The kid was still doing the slow nod. So, you're being stalked by Mormons, monkeys, and whatever the thing with the wet nose was. Some kind of ghostly Irish setter? Yeah. See how funny you think it is when your apartment turns out to be haunted. Oh, wait, it is. By old people. Clarence rented a room in some rich folks' house. Living rich folks. Bert and Sheila are really nice, actually. I'm sure that my visitor is a really nice, cursed monkey's paw, too. Kind to children and dogs and shit like that, but I still don't want it hanging around my apartment when I'm not there, especially since the mule told me I'm not allowed to move somewhere else, which would be the obvious solution. By the way, thanks for your words of support, Junior. Look, I'm not making fun of you, Bobby. I just don't know what to say. This is still a bit new to me, all these demons and monsters and stuff. He stared at his menu, which he had been doing a lot since he'd come in. Speaking of new to me, I don't know what any of this stuff is. Seriously, I don't recognize anything. Do they eat actual food in Indonesia? Kid, if you're going to start hanging out with the big boys like me and Sam, you have to start eating big boy food. You live in San Judas, one of the best restaurant towns in the world. We got people selling gyros and Vietnamese mechs and even chicken and waffles out of street trucks. Not to mention a zillion different interesting ethnic restaurants like this one. You're going to be dead a long time. Hey, you might have been dead a long time already for all I know. So you might as well branch out. Yes, but do I have to start with Indonesian? Look at what they're eating over there. Rocks and bark. I shook my head. First off, this isn't Indonesian. It's actually Javanese food. Java is only one of thousands of islands in Indonesia. Like all Boston clam chowder is American food, but not all American food is Boston clam chowder. Second, what those folks are eating is nasi gudeg, and it's really good. The rock, as you so ignorantly called it, is a marbled, hard-boiled egg. The stuff it's sitting on is not bark, but gudeg, which is made from jackfruit. Yeah? How about the fried washcloth? Buffalo skin. Probably from a cow, actually. No, it's good. Stop making faces. Just let me order for both of us and try not to hyperventilate. While we waited for the food and Clarence watched various menu items go to nearby tables, the kid's expression was like someone forced to watch ugly people have sex, I brought him the rest of the way up to date. Well, not about Anaita's involvement. Clarence was still new to this whole disobeying the boss's thing, and Anaita was seriously high in the hierarchy. I wasn't ready to drag him in that deeply. He listened, but he also seemed distracted, like there was something on his mind. He kept saying things like, "You know, Bobby," and then kind of trailing off as though he'd chickened out on whatever he'd been about to say. Whatever it was, I figured he'd bring it up when he was ready, and besides, I had worries of my own. Not just unexplained things going bump, but Foxy and his very obvious case of the fear. "Who is that Foxy guy, anyway?" Clarence asked. "How did he find out about your feather in the first place?" "I don't know. But once it had been stolen from Eligor, I'm sure the word got around, and locating odd items for interested buyers seems to be what Dancing Mr. Fox does." He frowned. "So the feather means Kephis made a deal with the Grand Duke of Hell." Kephis was the angelic pseudonym Anaita had used setting up the Third Way. "Eligor is a Grand Duke," I told him. "I think there are a few, but only one whose heart I personally needed to tear out of his immortal chest and squeeze like a ripe tomato, and that was Eligor the Horseman." "But why would a high angel like Kephis do that?" "Because no one could open up a new territory like this Third Way place without both a major angel and a major demon signing off. That goes all the way back to the Tartarian Convention. I saw what looked like our order being lifted onto the pass-through, so I signaled the waiter to bring me another bintang. I said I was cutting back, and I meant it. Bintang beer doesn't have a lot of alcohol in it, honest, but you need something cold and wet to wash down the peppers. "Yeah, I get that, but why?" Clarence asked. "The two of them made this big bargain and opened this new territory. I understand that. And I get that Kephis wanted it for this experiment or whatever." He had hesitated oddly before using Anaita's pseudonym. Did he have suspicions of his own about the identity of Sam's mystery angel? But why would Eligor go along with it? Actually, that's a good question, and I don't know the answer. So the angel would owe him a favor, maybe? That's got to be useful if you're a major player in hell. The rivalries those guys have with each other are as bad as anything they feel about us. Still, it seems weird. His look of dissatisfaction turned into something altogether more perturbed as the waiter thumped a bunch of plates down on the table. You ordered rocks. Eggs, kid, eggs. And I don't care if you sit there and starve, but if you keep me from enjoying my food, I'm going to skull you with one of them, and it's going to hurt. As we ate, I thought about what Clarence had said. I was beginning to think he was right. If I was going to find the horn that Eligor had given as a marker on the deal, it might help if I understood the deal better. Maybe it's time I let Sam show me his new place. I shoveled in the last wiggly forkful of bakmi jawa. There might be something about his third way that would put the whole thing in a different light, because right now, I'm stuck. The third way was what they called the alternative to heaven and hell that Anaita had put together. Sam had jumped ship to work for them, so he clearly thought it was a good idea, but I still didn't entirely get the whole premise. I mean, yeah, heaven and hell are moribund and old-fashioned. Why wouldn't they be after 11 gazillion years? But I wasn't sure that creating a competitor for the two of them was a smart thing to do. After all, heaven has a long memory, and hell has lots of lawyers. Where is Sam, by the way? Clarence had tried a few things, but mostly he had been pushing his dinner around like a 10-year-old pretending to eat enough to earn dessert. I thought he'd be meeting us. I left him a message and asked him to, but maybe something came up. At the table behind Clarence, a couple of very, very American-looking teenage girls were sitting with their parents and an older Asian lady who was probably their grandmother. The girls looked about as happy to be here as my guests did, rolling their eyes at every new dish that came to the table. But one way or another, I've got to get hold of that devil horn. It's my only bargaining chip. To get Kaz back, I could have said, but didn't have to. Clarence knew. He'd been in the parking garage with me when it all went sour, when Eligor went home with the angel's feather and I was left with nothing but a couple of gallons of dissolving fake Kaz. Clarence and Sam had basically carried me home that night, then poured me back out of a vodka bottle a couple of weeks later. The girls at the next table were ignoring their parents completely now, as the adults conversed quietly in what was probably some Indonesian dialect. If you think I know the difference between Balinese and Javanese, you've certainly got the wrong angel. The girls giggled and squealed in English. She says she's getting an after-school job, pronounced one of them with disdain. As a slut, said the other. They both collapsed into laughter again. The parents and the old woman didn't even look at them. They may have not understood the English very well. The grown-ups probably don't know much about what their kids are getting up to here in the land of the free, I thought. This sparked an idea, which distracted me enough that I missed part of what Clarence was saying. Because if this Keefe stashed the horn in heaven somewhere, you'll never find it, Bobby. No, I don't think that's where it is. But I was focused now on what the girls behind him had said. After-school job. If you had something that belonged to an important demon, the last place you'd want to stash it would be upstairs. Talk about something sticking out like a sore thumb. It would be like trying to hide a chunk of uranium in a Geiger counter factory. So, you think the horn's somewhere here on Earth? He snorted. She'd be easy to find after narrowing it down so far. Sarcasm is like training wheels for the humor impaired, I informed him. You want another beer? No, thanks. I've got something to do in a little while. Suddenly he seemed to go a bit cagey. But thanks, the buffalo washcloth thing was actually pretty good. You're a miracle of tolerance, Junior. I flipped some money onto the tray to cover the bill and the tip. I just thought of something I have to do, too. Oh, he looked disappointed. I thought we might hang out a bit longer. Why? Nothing. But he looked like it had definitely been something. The kid wore a mild but distinct air of disappointed. I just wanted to talk to you about... Never mind, it doesn't matter. It can wait. Good, because I just realized I have another resource besides the fabulous Mr. Fox, who can give me some information about auctions, especially auctions for exotic objects like angel feathers and, possibly, demon horns too. There are very few activities that are going to make a guy look and feel more like a pervert than driving slowly past a Catholic girls' academy when school lets out, examining all the young women. You have to look closely because the uniforms make them look alike, you see. Honest, there's a reason I was doing this. I finally spotted her and eased up alongside the curb. Luckily for me, she was walking by herself. I had a suspicion she did that a lot. I rolled my window down. Hi, can I buy you a milkshake, young lady? She looked up with a slightly unfocused expression, as though she needed to see me before knowing whether she was being teased or actually threatened. She pushed her glasses up her nose, then smiled. Mr. Dollar, hi, what are you doing here? Like I said, Edie, buying you a milkshake, if that's okay. Can you spare me 15 or 20 minutes? Sure. Do you want me to get in? Probably give people the wrong idea. The San Judas Creamery is just around the corner and down a block. I'll meet you there. Because of slow traffic from all the people picking up their daughters, Edie actually reached the place before I did. I settled in on the other side of the booth, facing her and her enormous backpack. Despite her youth, Edie Parmenter was one of the most acute sensitives in Northern California, and her after-school job had nothing to do with rolling burritos or stacking jeans at the Gap. We both ordered chocolate shakes. I was still fairly full from lunch, but it's hard to turn down a serious milkshake, and that's the kind they made there. It's weird to see you here, Mr. Dollar, Edie said. Not bad, I mean, just... She laughed. I totally didn't expect you. Me and the Spanish Inquisition, I said. Sorry, old joke. Edie gave me a stern look. I know about Monty Python, Mr. Dollar. My dad quotes them all the time. Ow. I leaned back. How's life? How's school? 10th grade completely sucks, but at least I don't have to board at school this year. But I have to say, I don't think nuns make the best science teachers. Like Sister Bernice was telling us the other day that humans only went to the moon to try to find God. And this other teacher told me that God hates San Judas because there are so many gay people living here. Yeah, especially around the downtown fabric stores, I said. That's a real problem for heaven. Armageddon is supposed to start right here in the Pioneer District. She looked at me carefully. I get it. You're joking. There's nothing wrong with gay people. I agree. Not to mention that anybody who pisses off nuns is okay with me. I paused while our shakes arrived, nodded thanks to the server, then unsheathed my straw. Hey, I wanted to ask you something, Edie. Last time I saw you, remember? Islanders Hall? She pushed back her glasses again so she could see to force her own straw into the thick shake. The auction, yeah. That was totes scary. All those people shooting. And you knocked me over on my bike. It was quite a night, all right, but I wanted to ask you to tell me what you remembered about it. Mostly, I want to know who else was there. I had picked The right girl. Edie reeled off a list. Japanese Crowleyites, some Jesuits, Scythian priestesses, Foxy had called them Amazons, I remembered, and more. But none of the names sparked any new ideas. I asked Edie in a roundabout way if she'd heard anything lately about a horn that might have the same kind of value as the feather, but she only shook her head. Hang on, there we go. But she only shook her head. Oh, no, that feather, no, is crazy. I've never heard of anything like that before. Not since then, either. She paused for a moment, sorting something out in her mind. The person who sent me that night? Well, that person, she was walking around the pronoun, I noticed, protecting her client, wanted me to describe everyone else who was there, too, just like you. I don't want to get you in trouble, but can you tell me anything about your client? Anything at all? She put down her milkshake. You know I can't do that, Mr. Dollar. It's bad business. I get it. Drink up, I understand. Okay, here's another question. I have a real need to find out some things, and that night and the people who wanted the feather make a good starting point. Any chance your client would talk to me? Edie's eyes went big. I don't think so. Well, do me a favor. Contact him or her and ask, would you? Tell them it's important to me and that I'd make it worthwhile to them. She still looked worried. I don't know. It can't hurt to ask. You've known me for a few years now, Edie. Have I ever lied to you about anything? Done anything crooked? You hit that guy in the face that one time. Are you talking about the jamoke who was trying to sell that bogus relic of Le Saint Prépuce? Come on, that was gross, and he totally had it coming. Let's be fair, he threatened to pull a knife on me. She giggled. Actually, it was pretty cool, like a movie. She slurped up the last of her shake and sat back, studying me through her slightly crooked glasses. She could have been Encyclopedia Brown's cooler sister. Okay, Mr. Dollar, I'll check it out with my employer. How do I reach you? I wrote down my cell number on the receipt and pushed it across to her. Okay, I gotta go. I got a crap ton of math homework. Thanks for the milkshake. She slid out of the booth and out the door, trundling her backpack on wheels behind her. Just another 10th grader who could read ancient Akkadian and tell a genuine stone of Garamphil from a realistic fake at 20 yards distance. Just as I was pulling up to my apartment, my phone rang. This time it was my frequent co-conspirator, Sam. Finally. Sorry I couldn't make lunch today, B. Things to do, people to irritate. What's the good word? The good word is good egg, boy chick, and you missed it. Yeah, I know. Next time. But I still need to talk to you. The shit is getting thick around here, and now, on top of everything else, my apartment is haunted. I gave him the 5-cent tour of my recent spectral happenings. Are you sure it's not just a couple of your one-night stands still knocking around the place? He said. Judging by your past habits, I wouldn't be in a hurry to call an exorcist. Yeah, well, fuck you too. We passed a few more lazy insults and agreed to make a new lunch date in the next couple of days. As I went up the stairs toward my second-floor rooms, I was feeling like I might actually be making some headway with the 4,000 or 5,000 critical issues hanging over my head. Then I got to my apartment, and even as I reached into my pocket for the keys, I noticed that the door wasn't entirely closed. You know how those alarms blare when a sub starts diving? That's what I felt up and down my spine. Danger, danger, danger. I left the keys where they were and pulled out my gun instead, then ducked down and slid through the door as quietly as I could. I didn't have to go far. 2 young, pale guys in suits. Yep, same 2 I'd seen following me downtown, were pulling stuff out of my cheap pressboard bookshelves, making a big old mess in the process. Worse, they had actually painted a big, ragged swastika on the wall above the television set. Freeze! I stepped in, gun up and braced, and swung it back and forth between the two of them. Both were young, probably mid-20s. One had dark hair, one had light, but both were as Caucasian as Betty Crocker's firstborn. They looked like student athletes, maybe a little older, but certainly less than 30. And though they were equally wide-eyed as they looked at my gun, neither of them seemed particularly frightened, which was not a soothing thing. These weren't just thugs or thieves, although I was pretty sure they were both human. "So," I asked, "you Jehovah's Witnesses need to supplement your income these days, huh? You're not going to get much for those old issues of Car and Driver." I gestured to the swastika, but didn't take my eyes off the men. "Or are you something else? The local neo-Nazi welcome wagon?" One of them started to lower his hands, but I gestured angrily for him to put them back up. "If you just tell us where it is," he said in a calm voice, "there'll be no need for trouble." He sounded American, that's all I could tell you. "And if you lie face down on the floor with your hands where I can see them, I won't have to send you to Jesus with a bunch of holes in your face," I pointed out. Several things happened in the next second or so. I heard a noise behind me, then something hit me hard on the back of the skull. I staggered, and the only shot I took went wide and high of both the guys in suits. I fell forward onto my hands and knees, my head suddenly feeling like a broken cabin window at 35,000 feet, all my thoughts rushing around and being sucked out into darkness. Also, and I realize I wasn't a very reliable witness at that instant, but I swear that the swastika painted on my wall ran away. As I crouched there in the silence following the echo of my shot, swaying, trying to find the strength to get up, I heard my upstairs neighbor start pounding on the floor again, as if a gunshot was no different than playing the stereo too loud. Then somebody kicked me in the head. Yes, the same hurting head, and I went off to Sleepy By Land, which was very, very dark. And that is the end of that chapter. And chapter 6, which is called Black Sun, is coming up, but I'm going to wait to start that until next week. So we will leave Bobby where he is right now, lying on the floor, and we will return to Bobby probably 1 a.m. Sunday next week. Let me just make a bookmark where I was. Anyway, so as always, let me just check and see. We're still on. Yes, we're still on. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, as always, for spending time with me. I do appreciate it. I know you can't see it through the camera and the software and all that stuff, but this is me being grateful. See, this is me, grateful. But no, I do seriously enjoy it, and I am glad that we get to do this at least once a week. And I hope we can continue to do it, or at least something closely approximating the same experience if we have to change things up at a certain point. But at the moment, we don't have to change anything. So I will see you again next week. Until that time, take good care of yourselves. That's where to start. Take good care of yourselves. Take good care of your loved ones, close friends, people that are most important to you, but also keep an eye out for other folks as well. People who might need just a kind word, a couple of bucks, just not being looked at like they are some kind of freaks or something negative. I, for instance, just a brief by the by, I mean, I have had times when I am caught out and somebody is looking for some help, holding a sign on a street corner or something, and I don't have any cash with me, and I still try to stop the car and say, I don't have any cash. I'll try and come by here, in the next day or so if you're still here. But, at least good luck to you, and I hope things get better. And I know it sounds really sappy, but I have never had anybody not say, hey, thank you at least for stopping. because it is no fun to be ignored, and it is no fun to be treated like you have some kind of embarrassing disease simply because you're poor or in bad shape in some way. So anyway, enough editorializing. I think you get the point. But the world is full of people who could use, at the very least, a kind word. So until I return, which will be very soon, I say to you again, thank you for joining me. Peace. Be good. Enjoy life. And I will talk to you again soon. Ciao, Bambini.